All right, we should be recording now. So, hope you guys are having a great day if you're watching live or if you're watching the replay. But obviously, we have a special guest here today. So, we have Amy Parker. She's been a one-on-one client of mine for the past year. I think it was last August when you officially got started or somewhere around that time.
Yeah.
And it's just been awesome working with you for the last year and just super excited to come on here and talk about your journey, your experience with coaching, all the progress you've made, because I think your story is gonna, inspire a lot of people. Um, as we get started, and by the way, she's repping the I Thrive Nutrition and Fitness shirt if you're watching the video. So I love that. But tell everyone a little bit about yourself, like who you are, where you're from, any fun facts, about Amy.
Okay. All right. My name is Amy Parker. I am 45 years old. I'm from Mansfield, Ohio. I started working, as Joey mentioned, I started working with him about a year ago, and it's been going well. It's been going well. It's been more of a journey than just a weight loss that I've done a million times, like we all have with the diets and all of that. I've learned a lot about myself. And I don't, do you want me to say kind of how my journey started?
Yeah, yeah. So let's go ahead and dive into where your health journey started. I guess take us to was weight something that you always struggled with, or your health in general something you always struggled with? And then when was it, what happened in your life where it was like, okay, I need to start taking my health more seriously, and kind of basically take us through that journey of where we got to where you were right when you reached out for coaching before you signed up.
Okay. So I was never like overly active. Like I can remember all the way back to junior high and when you had to run the mile, like I walked the mile, and I chewed gum while I did it to be extra spiteful, you know. So I was never a fan. I was a cheerleader, but I wasn't like a competitive cheerleader that did all the stunting and the gymnastics and all of that. I I always joke that I got a varsity letter in girls soccer and girls basketball, but it was because I taped their ankles. I never played. I wasn't actually on the team. I just
Hmm.
handled when they got injured. So that's how I got a varsity letter in high school. And then, college comes along and life comes along and kids come along. And after my first son, who is now 17, was born, I did start running. And when he was a year old, I ran a 5K and I was so proud of myself. And then I stopped running because I hit that goal. Like I had run the
Hmm.
5K and I was done. Um, and I didn't run anymore after that. And then I had had success over the years with Weight Watchers, but the second I quit doing Weight Watchers, all my weight would come back. And I think I joined a group of girls that were doing like a weight loss challenge around the holidays or right after holidays a couple years ago. And I won the challenge. I lost the largest percentage of weight, but then the challenge was over and I went back to my normal habits and I put all the weight back on. So 2 years ago in March, 42 years old, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And that was anyone who's been diagnosed with cancer knows what kind of a shock that was. And I went through 4 surgeries in a year, and that meant a lot of being just in a recliner recovering. And, I can remember walking to the mailbox after one of my surgeries, and that was a big day. Like a big exercise day for me was going to the mailbox. And I live in a neighborhood. It's not like I live on a country road with a big long driveway. It was literally
Hmm.
just to the end of my driveway. And it was after my surgeries that I had to be on some different medications because my tumors were hormone positive, and so I have to be on hormone blockage medication. And I remember going to my oncologist and I remember crying right before I had the appointment. I was walking down the stairs and my mom was there and she said, "Why are you stopping on the stairs?" And I said, "Because it hurts. Everything hurts. My joints hurt. it just everything hurt. And I just thought that was what after cancer was going to be for me. I was just going to always be in pain. I spent last summer, we spent a lot of time on the lake, and I was not on the boat with the family because my back hurt so bad. And I was having x-rays done and different tests done to make sure that it wasn't like a metastasizing issue in my bones. And it wasn't. And it was just like I was getting back injuries. I helped my son move into school, and my back hurt then for the whole summer. Um, so I went to my oncologist, and she said, you need to move and you need to lose 10% of your body weight. And the medication that you're on is going to cause you to gain weight. And you can't run because your joints can't handle that right now. You need to do water aerobics and yoga. And I left crying because I'm like, how am I ever going to do this? Like, it hurts too bad to move. She wants me to lose 10% of my body weight, and I can't run. So I felt very defeated. And that day I saw a friend of mine, and I was crying to her. And she was friends with someone that one of your clients, Joey. And she said, I know my friend has had a lot of success with this guy. Why don't you reach out to him? And so that day I joined our local YMCA, and I hired a personal trainer, and I made a phone call to you.
Got it.
And
No,
it's been life changing.
yeah, yeah. No, awesome just like story and summary there. And so like, you kind of did the thing, before the cancer diagnosis, what a lot of people end up, struggling with of like doing these like fad diets or these quick fixes or doing these short challenges and losing a bunch of weight temporarily, but then just gaining it back because you're not really actually learning how to like incorporate it within your life. You're not learning how to maintain your results along the way. You're just kind of putting the foot all the way down, to the floor. And then once you kind of reach your goal or the program, quote unquote, is over, you just like completely let off and gain the weight back. So you kind of dealt with that, cycle. But then obviously like the cancer diagnosis, like that was a big part of your journey too, where now like you were struggling to lose weight, but then on top of that, like your body physically was in such a hard spot to like now you're probably more motivated than ever to lose the weight, but now your body's not cooperating with you to be able to be active and move around. That's going to help you to lose the weight. So it sounds like when you left that appointment, you were kind of like, well, what in the world am I going to do? Like, how am I going to navigate this? And felt probably almost a little like hopeless in a sense of like, how am I going to get to my end goal if I can't run, if I can't move around the way that I want? And then it sounds like you also were too, and we've talked about this before with like so many of your check-ins and everything, that there was a lot of parts in your life that were getting like taken away from you as far as things you could physically do. Like you mentioned, like the lake house, going on the boat, not being able to do that. And I know helping your son move in and being so sore afterwards, and so you were not only kind of experiencing like the common normal, hey, I'm trying to lose weight because I want to look better and I keep gaining it back, but also like your body felt like it was actually just kind of wearing away and like getting weaker over time. And so I'm sure those were like some big motivators for you to, finally go ahead and try, professional help, try to, do this, with somebody versus on your own.
Yeah, those were definitely motivators for me. I felt like I was terrified that's just how my life was going to be from that point on. And so it almost felt like if I didn't reach out to some people and get some help with it, then it was my last straw almost. Like, I'm either going to accept that this is my life and everything, and I'm now this very elderly person that is going to become very sedentary, or I'm going to give it this one last chance.
Yeah.
And I'm real glad I gave it that one last chance.
Yeah. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because I don't want to like make this about my story, but when like a year after my mom had passed, I was like dealing with a lot of anxiety and depression. And there was this like wake up call that I had a year after she had passed where I was in the middle of my dietetic internship, still in school, and my program director like sat me down and they told me that I was showing up, late every day. I wasn't enthusiastic like I should have been. I was getting, poor performance grades in my rotations, and like that my next rotation, like I needed to step it up, or I could potentially be kicked out. And then if that were to happen, then getting back into a dietetic internship to become a dietitian was going to be so hard, if not impossible. And I probably, wouldn't be where I am now. Like, sure, there are some people who do coaching without the credentials, but like that was a big thing that I wanted to do, was get the credential before doing it, or like while doing it. And so that was a moment where I had to reach out for help, professional help, and I did start seeing a counselor at that point and got the help I needed there to, start feeling better mentally. So then, I could turn things around, and I did. And it reminded me of kind of what you said, where like you felt like it was this like last chance for you to like actually do something about it. And you're like, I'm not gonna just try to do this on my own anymore. I've tried on my own long enough, and like I don't want to waste time trying it on my own and failing more. So I'm gonna actually reach out and get, like you said, professional help there.
Mm-hmm. And I can even remember, right after I started, right after I reached out to you, I had some friend that was like, "Oh, yeah, whatever. Why don't you just call me all the time? I'll tell you what you can eat, what you can't eat." And I was like, "No, I think this person like really knows the science behind it and knows what, yeah, whatever. They all claim to be that way." And so I think that was my draw to working with you, is one of our very first conversations, you really went into like the science behind the mental blockage that sometimes happens with your body and the lies that your mind is telling. So it was, I mean, I know you're not a therapist, but there were times that I felt like there was therapy session along with the recommendations and everything. And it just was different than just, talking to someone that read an article that said, "Oh yeah, this is what we should be eating right now." And
Yeah.
it had
Eh,
that different feel to it.
for sure. Like, and this is like one of the big things, and I always like struggle to communicate this because I never want it to come off the wrong way to people. But a lot of people think that they know what they need to do and they just need to do it. Like they're like, okay, I know I need to eat healthy. I know how to eat healthy. I know I need to work out consistently. So I just need to do it, and I just need accountability. And the truth is, most people know common sense what healthy eating looks like, or common sense what exercise in general like feels like. But most people don't know how to put together an actual program that's built on
Hold
progression,
on
that
a
helps
second.
you
I think
progress
I
over
lost
time.
audio on you. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Okay, so I think it's,
Sorry
yeah, we're
about
back.
that.
So, no, it's okay. So, I think what I was saying, oh yeah, a lot of people like they know what common sense healthy eating looks like. They know what um exercise feels like in general, but they don't know how to put together an actual like exercise program that builds on each other, that progresses you physically. And they don't know how to, especially like, okay, you might be eating healthy, but are you eating the right amounts? You could eat quote unquote healthy foods, but eat way too much for your body and still not see progress. Or you could eat quote unquote healthy foods and eat too little and then not see progress that way because your body is stalling out and not getting the nutrients it needs too. So like this is where like I said, I kind of struggle to like say that bluntly, but not to offend people. Of like, you might think you know what you need to do, but a lot of times you actually don't really know. And because like when I ask somebody, hey, like, do you know how to build calories up before you go into a fat loss phase to get your body to respond better? And they're like, no. Do you know how to implement a fat loss phase with maintenance days sprinkled in, with also like diet breaks sprinkled in too, so your hunger is at bay and you're able to learn how to maintain your results? And they're like, well, no. And like their friends, like you said, your friend, they probably don't know how to do that either, right? So also like what you added too is the psychology behind it, which is so huge. Like, I mean, I have a lot of clients that call me their therapist in a sense. And I do have a bachelor's in psychology. I don't call myself a therapist, but I do have that. So I probably like take some of that with me. And I also think I just kind of have a knack and am just really interested in the human mind and behavior and how things work. So like, I just get into the weeds with that stuff a lot. But that stuff is so important because even if I laid out the perfect plan for you or for anybody for the next 12 months, like if I could, be a psychic or a genie and write out, here's exactly what to eat every day for the next year. And if you do this, you're going to lose 30 or 40 pounds in the next 12 months. Even if people had the perfect plan in front of them, they wouldn't do it without that human support or that coaching support because you're going to get inside of your own head some days and you're going to have to be talked off the ledge, or you're going to have to be reminded of, hey, like you need to give yourself grace, like you're doing great. And then sometimes you need to be reminded too of, hey, like we're doing great, but we're maybe giving ourselves a little bit too much grace, and maybe we need to hold ourselves a little bit more accountable and follow through too. And those are things that just knowing the science and not knowing how to communicate that with clients, or not having somebody in your corner for human support, like you don't have that part, which is like over 50% of the battle, in my opinion, when it comes to doing all this long term.
Some weeks it's way over 50% of the battle. I mean,
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
had
I
messages.
would say it is probably more often than not, more than half the battle, the psychology aspect behind it or the mental aspect behind it.
I think one of the best check-ins, well, it wasn't one of the best, it was one of my worst check-ins, but the best moments with you was, I think I said, please don't give up on me. I did terrible this week. Please don't give up on me. Like that was what I typed in. And I was probably even crying while I was typing it in. And I was so afraid. I mean, this is my issues. Like I was so afraid to get my message back from you that next day. And the message back, I think I probably started crying again because you were like, I'm never giving up on you. You didn't do bad. Quit calling yourself bad. Like, I think I said, I feel like I'm getting called to the principal's office. And you said, what? You're like, Amy, stop. You're doing great. Look at and that's what I love is all those moments. And anyone that's ever been on a diet has those moments of you feel so defeated and you feel like you've thrown it all away or whatever. And you always stop and you say, take a look at this progress. Look at what the chart has done. Look at these pictures. Look at this progress. You're like, I am here to support you. And that has always felt so good is it's not, um, you're not there to make sure I'm doing perfect every day. You're there to continue to encourage me to make choices that are going to lead me to what I told you I want my goal to be. And I
Yeah.
think that makes it a big difference.
Yeah, I love that last sentence you said because I was just gonna say that, which is like with me as a coach or anybody as a coach, like they shouldn't be telling you to do this, like without taking into account like what you're saying your goals are and what you're saying what your expectations are. Um, like my job as a coach is to align your actions with your expectations and to make sure those things are connected. And like if you don't have a perfect week, there should be no guilt on your end of like I let Joey down, or like Joey's going to be disappointed in me, or Joey's going to give up on me, because I'm not there to like steer the ship. I'm there to just, I guess, sit in the passenger seat and like tell you which direction to go if this is like the result or the destination that you actually want to end up at. It's like, if I was on a road trip with you and you wanted to travel cross country and you were driving, you're like, hey, I'm okay if this drive across the country takes, you know, an extra day or two, but I want to stop at, this shop and take a look at these gifts, or this gift shop, or I want to stop at, this restaurant, and I want to stop at this hotel and maybe get some more sleep. And I'm like, okay, that's okay. Like, as long as it's going to take a little bit longer if we make those stops. But if you are telling me you're making all these stops and then you're like, I'm so mad that like it's been this long and I'm still not down this amount of weight, then I'm like, well, maybe we take less stops and maybe we actually like keep driving, a little bit more. I don't know, I guess without taking as many stops, but
I love
the
your analogies.
yeah, and that's another thing that most of my clients probably know, that I'm always trying to think of analogies to connect it. But
Well, I'm
like,
currently teaching my son how to drive, and so
yeah,
this is a fun analogy. I'm like, I give him encouragement, but when we almost hit the mailbox the other day, I did grab the steering wheel. So,
yeah,
it's the same concept. I'm in the passenger seat, and that's what you do for me is you're in my passenger seat and you're encouraging me. But when I almost hit a mailbox, you do grab the steering wheel for me.
Right, yeah. And those in extreme moments, right? If you were like having a completely full-on binge weekend, I'd be like, "Hey, like let's maybe not do that." And but at the same time, like if you have a week where, hey, I didn't necessarily hit my fat loss range of calories. I didn't eat a little bit more than that, but I still try to stay around maintenance. I'm okay that I maybe maintained my weight this week and maybe didn't lose any. I still enjoyed myself. And for me, I'm like, hey, that's great. Like, you made an intentional decision to do that. Just like in this analogy, if you make an intentional decision to stop at, this hotel, like that's okay with me. You just got to be okay with it taking a little bit longer. Now, if you make an intentional decision to want to drive into a mailbox, I'd probably say, hey, that's probably not the safest. Let's maybe not do that. But um, uh, it's all about just like you as a client communicating where you want to go and what your expectations are, and me basically telling you what actions you probably need to take to meet those expectations. And then if we're running into mindset issues that are getting in the way, obviously coaching you through that. But it's not about me being a drill sergeant and yelling at you to do certain things when you might be okay with a slightly slower approach if it means living your life more. And like,
Well,
that's great. I actually encourage that.
I think a great example is this summer. This summer, I have had a lot of different traveling going on, whether it's been with, my husband's work, or we went on a family vacation, or, we spend some time, we travel up and spend time on the lake on the weekends. And um, I have maintained, I've even lost a little actually this summer, but I've been kind of maintaining and kind of, normally summers everything goes haywire. I just throw the towel in, I eat whatever I want, drink whatever I want, and start over again in the fall. And I didn't do that. I haven't been like super strict fat loss, but I've been trying to make some, I like to call my educated decisions, because you've guided me a little bit of how to make some of those educated decisions. But I have stopped for the ice cream treat because it's summer and I want that moment with my kids. And, that's something special we do in the summer. And it's been good. And, we talked about this just a couple weeks ago. The fact that I've maintained through the summer is a huge accomplishment for me. And does that mean that my ultimate weight loss goal might now be 2, 3 months down further than what it originally was going to be? Yeah, but I don't look at this anymore as I need to be at this weight by a certain date, as much as I am learning how to live life like as an adult, as a woman, as a cancer survivor, as a mom, as all of these hats that we wear as adults. And I'm learning how to live my life where the ultimate goal is to be here, to be here, to be healthy, to be active with my kids, to do those things. And so being able to do those things with my kids, and I moved my son out of school this year without back pain. I actually water skied this summer, not just got on the boat. So doing these things and being able to be in these moments with my kids is now my ultimate goal, more than the weight loss is my ultimate goal. So I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And yeah, I mean, I love what you said about this summer, where normally it would be a summer where you just would like give up on your goals and restart in the fall. And that's where so many people fall into that trap of, okay, like January through May, they maybe lose 15 pounds, maybe 20 even. And then over the summer, they gain 10, 15, maybe even all of it back. And then the fall comes and they maybe lose another 10 pounds from September to November. But then the holidays come rolling around and then they gain those 10 pounds back. And they're constantly just go through that cycle over and over. And if you were to just like look at a snapshot without any context of like your weight in the beginning of the summer versus now, you would see, oh, like, she's maybe down a few pounds, but like she's kind of maintained over the summer. Like she's not making any progress. But, you've made tons of progress compared to where you would have been if you weren't doing this, because you would have maybe been 10 or 15 pounds heavier. So that's like, if you add up that difference, that's a 15 to almost 20 pound, like, difference between where you could be versus where you are. On top of that, how much more you've enjoyed your life over this summer compared to last summer, after you've now lost 30 pounds total, which is amazing. But like, all the physical things you've been able to do this summer is just amazing. And like, water skiing, super impressive. I can't even do that. I've tried a few times to stand up when, because you have to like, I don't know. You have to time it perfectly or have the right balance. The first time I ever tried water skiing was like, I was probably, I don't know, maybe 23 years old, like almost mid 20s. I don't know if you've water skied like when you were a kid, or was it
I
something that you
did.
just learned as an adult?
Yeah, water skiing in your adult years is a lot harder.
Yeah, so you were
But
you were you were younger when you learned.
when I first learned, yeah. So to
Okay,
get
that
up this
makes me
year,
feel
it'd been a
better.
couple years, with the cancer and then with being injured last summer and all of that. But I got up long enough and stayed up long enough just for a picture.
Yeah. Well, that makes me feel better that like you learned as a kid, but because yeah, it's hard. So props to you for that. But you've been able to do so many of these things physically, and even just like enjoying the ice cream and not feeling guilty about it, and not letting it turn into a spiral where you do gain a bunch of weight back. Like that's huge and that's amazing. And there are so many other, I think I remember things that you put on your check-in form. I think like even your last vacation, all of the walking that you've done, like did on that vacation, and that you wouldn't have been able to do before. And
Yeah, we went to
uh,
New York City and I
yeah,
walked like, what was it, 26,000 steps in a day. And the
yeah.
next day I think I rested, but the day after that I got 10,000 steps in, so it wasn't like I was out of commission for a week after walking 13 miles in a day.
Yeah, and think about like where you were a year ago. Like, would you have even been able to do 26,000 steps in a day?
Definitely not.
Um, so it's just like a lot of people, they focus so much on like how the weight loss is going to make them look and feel in their clothes, which is like important too. It's important to feel good in your own skin, but like for you, it's been so cool to see just the physical things that you have been able to do as you've lost these 30 pounds so far, and the strength that you've built, and just like the life, like so much life you've gained. Like so many people think so much about, okay, well, I'm doing this coaching. I'm going to have to give up pizza or give up ice cream. And you never have to like give it up entirely. Maybe a little bit, you have to give up some certain portion sizes of things, but you don't have to like completely give it up. But even if you did in your mind, like focus on those types of things you're giving up, you're gaining so much more from doing this versus like the small things you do have to have in moderation more.
I have always been a major sweet tooth. I mean, I love candy. I've always loved candy and cakes and all the sugars, all the cookies, everything. And one thing that I noticed, and actually my family pointed out to me one day, was when I started this working with you, after a few months, I just wasn't gravitating towards some of the sweets as much. So that's where, some of the body, I don't know if the science behind it, but like my body was okay not having the sugars and the sweets all the time. And even now, there can be desserts out and I can pass them up. And I don't think ever in my life have I been able, I've always felt like, oh, I've got to get all the desserts. And I still
Yeah.
do have desserts at times, but I don't feel like the major cravings for them anymore.
Yeah. And there's a couple of reasons behind that. Like one is, we started eating more protein that's making you feel more full, more satisfied. Probably started eating more, fruits and vegetables at this point too, which is helping. Exercise too does help to regulate cravings and appetite a little bit. So like us doing more of that, it's probably helping. And then even like when you stop eating that stuff as much, because we are emphasizing protein and fruits and vegetables, um, your body kind of gets trained to not crave it as much. Like when you're eating it so frequently, sometimes you get this big dopamine hit every time you have some sugar or something sweet. And then that dopamine hit like wants you to have more and more and more. But as you start having them a little bit more sparingly, you don't get as much of that. So there's, some, I guess, theories behind like that being a part of it too. But also too, I think there's also a big part of when you start to like gravitate towards more whole foods like lean meats, fruits and vegetables, carbs that are higher in fiber, you realize like how good your body feels after eating those things. Like, okay, I feel full, I feel satisfied, but I don't feel super sluggish or bloated. I feel more energized. And you, as long as you are like trying to be in tune with that and listen to those signs, you kind of subconsciously like gravitate towards those foods more because you just associate them with those positive physical feelings, versus if you just have like a huge bowl of ice cream for a snack. Sure, it tastes great in the moment, but afterwards you feel a little bit more sluggish. Now, like I enjoy ice cream all the time, so I'm not saying never to do it, but like just when you start to have those whole foods a little bit more, you start to realize how much better physically you feel too.
Well, I remember the one weekend I said, nope, I'm off this weekend. I'm just gonna throw it all to the wind. I'm gonna eat whatever I want. It's gonna be a great week. I was out with, I think, friends from college or something. And I think I messaged you as soon as the weekend was over. It was like, I regret every decision I made this weekend. I feel awful. Like I can't wait to get to the gym. And those aren't words this girl ever said. I was like, I can't wait to walk. I can't wait to get to the gym. I mean, I was like, I can't do that anymore. And it was the fried food and the sweets and the sugars. And I probably even had some drinks that weekend. And I felt my whole body just felt, ugh. And I was like, oh, okay. All right, so you were right again, Joey. You were right on this one too.
Well, and the thing is that I love that you just explained there too was it was a physical feeling of, oh, this doesn't feel great physically. It wasn't a, oh, I feel guilty because feel like I gained a bunch of body fat back. Like I'm a bad person for eating, ice cream, or a bad person for eating the fried foods. It was a physical thing. And like so many people are constantly eating just really processed foods all the time and eating or drinking a lot of alcohol all the time that they almost just like have adapted to that state of just physically not feeling that good. So they don't realize how good they actually could feel eating more, whole, quote unquote, healthier foods. But when you like make that change and then you do that for a while and you start to feel actually like really good, and then you go back to how you used to eat, you're like, man, like that, I feel like trash, physically eating this type of food. Like I used to work at Wendy's in high school and I used to eat Wendy's all the time, especially in the summer when I was working like 5 or 6 days a week, full time there. And I would have like sometimes a meal before my shift would start, a meal on my break, and then even sometimes a meal after. So I was having Wendy's like 2 times a day, sometimes even three. And now if I try to do that, like I don't even want to go to Wendy's once because just like when I eat those fried French fries, it just like it sits in my stomach. I feel really burpy. I'd rather chop up like sweet potatoes as fries, put them in my air fryer with a little bit of
Yep.
olive oil, like, and that would taste just as good in my opinion, and it would also physically make me feel really good.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're going to still want to do something after the meal, not just lay on the couch.
Yeah.
I think something else you mentioned just now that I have repeated to just people in my life because I tend to quote you a lot is the whole you're not bad for eating. I think that was a big mind shift that you and I have worked on, and I'm sure I hope it's been with other clients too, but associating eating with being good or bad. And I think that's something that we tell children, or that we were raised with as children. You've got to clean your plate. If you clean your plate, then that's good. And if you eat these, if you're good, then you get this special treat. But if you're, I mean, we just associate good and bad with food so many times, rather than food is the fuel that our body needs to move. And so if your body, you just have to keep feeding your body for different reasons. But I remember telling you, like, oh, I I did really bad this week. And you said you didn't do bad. You made choices, and today's a fresh day. So if you're not happy with the results of those choices, then make other choices. And that's been a big thing. And I've repeated that to people who are like, oh, I eat so bad. I'm like, it's not that you eat bad. You're not bad.
Hmm.
But if you don't like what your body is feeling like or what your body is looking like, then make a different choice.
Yeah. Absolutely. I that's like I wouldn't call it a pet peeve, but that's one of my biggest like mental triggers, not in a bad way where I get like frustrated or angry, but like
Right.
I have this heightened awareness whenever a client uses the word like good or bad. Like I had a good week or I had a bad week. And even when clients say they have a good week, I like to kind of like subtly try to like nip that in the butt too. I'm like, you maybe hit your goals or hit your daily targets really consistently, but let's try not to say it as good or bad because then you develop this like emotional attachment to it. And then when we develop this emotional attachment to all of these things, we end up having these huge spikes in like feeling super positive when like we were perfect with our goals and all of this stuff. But then we have also have these huge dips when we do have a week where we didn't track our food or we overate or we missed our workouts. And we want to avoid those huge swings, honestly, in either direction. Really, we want to be more even keeled where, okay, like when we have a week where we're really on point and we're seeing the result of being consistent, yeah, like it's definitely okay to feel good about that. And I celebrate all that stuff with, you and all of our clients too. But like just having that be more subtle, that up and down of emotions versus such these big swings. And part of that comes from not associating with how you're doing in the program with, like you said, are you good or are you bad? No, are your actions going to get you to the result you want? Then maybe not. Like that's the conversation we're having versus are you morally a good person or morally a bad person? Which is
Right.
why like I hate using the terms like cheat meals or cheat days. I hate using the terms like some coaches will use the term like, okay, just don't eat like an asshole, quote unquote. And like I I don't know. Like if you as long as you interpret it the right way, there's not a huge issue with that saying, but I still don't like to use it because it still does, morally kind of put like ties things in there in that way. And I just like to just if we can be as not completely emotionless because we're humans and we all have emotions, but the
But
more
stick to the facts.
yeah, exactly. Stick to okay, what did you do? What is the result of what you did? Is that the result you actually want? If yes, then keep doing what you're doing. If no, then like that behavior has to change. Like it's a simple, almost like an equation. These behaviors inputted are going to get this result. Is that the result we actually want? If yes, keep doing it. If no, then like let's change those inputs. Let's change those behaviors to align with that. But let's detach those feelings of like, emotions around it. Because also too, your behaviors, whether they're quote unquote good or bad, can also depend on what your current goals are. Like if your goal is to gain weight, well, you eating 1,500 calories is probably not actually good, quote unquote, in that scenario because your goal is to gain weight and that's probably too little for you. If your goal is to lose weight, maybe 1,500 calories actually is good. So these things change too. And also, like a very extreme example, as somebody who wants to like lose 30 pounds and they want to be healthy versus let's say like a sumo wrestler or an NFL lineman or something who has to actually maintain a 300 plus pound body weight. Like I've talked to some people who like back in college, like I had a friend who he played college football and he had to maintain over a certain weight. Well, for him, like eating an entire large pizza is probably quote unquote good. Maybe it's not good for his health, but it's good for the short term goal of keeping his weight up. So like these behaviors can all be either good or bad in different contexts too. So that's why we just really want to detach those labels from them.
One of the things you just mentioned, talking about calories, and I think it's important. I tell people, um, when I mention that I'm working with a registered dietitian, and they're like, "Well, healthy foods, just eat healthy food." I said, I did know healthy foods and I have done the diets and I knew what I was supposed to eat, but it turns out I wasn't eating enough. And they're like, "What do you mean?" "Oh, I eat plenty. I'll have this for breakfast and this for." I'm like, "You're probably not eating enough." I said that surprised me. And I remember one of like the first month, and you're like, you need to eat more. And I'm like, I'm not hungry. And you're like, too bad. You've got to get more calories in there. Your body doesn't have enough calories. You're not going to be able to go through this next fat loss phase until you get your body calories up. And I remember thinking, this is insane. But I rethought, like, listen, this is where you are right now. Listen to what he has to say. Give it this a chance, like, and I was like, oh man, he was right again. This is working out how it's supposed to. But I even have that conversation with my husband. He's like, oh, I want to lose weight. I'm like, okay, you don't eat enough. Like you aren't eating during the day, and you're working out hard, and like you've got to fuel your body. So even having you to explain, like I've never, for me in the program, I've never been like, oh my gosh, I am starving and I have nothing that I can eat. And I think that's important for anyone who's considering, a program like this. Is it I've never been starving. Yes, I have lost 30 pounds and I've never felt deprived from food, and I think in the past when I tried diets, I did, I quit eating at a certain time, or I only had this many bites of something or something, whatever it is. Now I've made adjustments on what I eat or what snack I grab at night. But like I said, my cravings have changed into what I want to eat. And feeling stronger and clothes fitting differently, like those are my rewards to make after making those choices. But I think that's important for people to realize is to understand the science of what your body actually does need. And I think a lot of the crash diets, you see big results quick that usually aren't sustainable. But you talk to anyone in the health field, like I've gone back to my oncologist, who is obviously thrilled I've lost more than 10% of my body weight. And I've gone to my, I have a medical oncologist, then I have a breast cancer surgeon, that office, and they have said to me, you are doing all the right things to keep your risks low of reoccurrence. And my medical oncologist, every time, she just like claps for me. She's so happy. So it was figuring out, and I guess I just come on a tangent, but it's figuring out it's not black and white. There's a reason you have a degree in this. There's a reason that you are able to coach so many women into these successful situations, because there is a science behind it. And I'm not expected to know that science, but I'm grateful that I found someone that does.
hmm Yeah, for sure. And there's another thing, too, like a lot of people think calories are just bad in general, and that's not the case. Like, yes, if we eat too many calories too consistently, more than what our body needs, we're probably going to see some body fat gain over time, which over time is probably going to lead to poor health outcomes. But at the same time, like less doesn't always mean better either. And there are a lot of times where clients, join the program, like yourself and other people and other women, and they are eating way less than what they actually should be eating for fat loss and even to maintain their weight. So we need to actually eat more calories. So it's just like, and I actually filmed a podcast like a week or two about this, of like fat loss is about this like delicate balance of, okay, yes, we do need to be in a calorie deficit to lose fat over time, meaning we're eating less than what we burn, but we can't eat so far less to where then our body starts to slow down and we feel sluggish and high fatigue and high cravings and everything. But then we also can't eat too much to where, we don't lose weight, but then also like we can't eat less than what we burn for too long, or else your body's going to start to shut down too, even if you are doing a sustainable approach, which is why we have these diet breaks and maintenance phases. So like there's some simple concepts of long-term fat loss of, okay, you need to be in a calorie deficit over a long period of time, but there are some detailed nuances that like help that approach be more sustainable and for you to maintain it, which is obviously like a big reason why you've done so well with maintaining over the summer, is us practicing those things along the way. So what I know we've been kind of jumping around. We had a little bit of an outline for this, but we've been jumping back and forth, but I love it. It's been like perfect. What was the most surprising thing, with coaching over the past year so far, for you, if anything that you found, what was surprising?
I think the most surprising, and I realized this probably just within the last month, is the check-in process. And, I come from a background of education. I taught middle school for 14 years. And when I was teaching, I was all about the whole child. There's a lot of teachers in the world that are like, my job is to teach, math. So I will only teach math. And I was never that way. I was always like, tell me about their story. Tell me about their life. How are you today? How was your breakfast this morning? Are we ready to learn? Are we ready to do that? And I feel like that's the approach that the check-ins take. And it's looking at me as a whole person, and it's asking questions about stress and asking questions about sleep and hunger levels and what are you proud of this week and what changes are you going to make next week to be able to do things. And it's looking at the whole person, and that has been a good surprise for me. um it even asks about your bowel movements and how regular you are. And at first I was like, I'm not answering that one. And I think one time I did come to you like, I'm embarrassed, but I have a poop question. And you're like, don't be embarrassed. This is part of the process. But it is looking at the whole body and how your body is responding to the different ways of doing things and what needs to be adjusted to keep everything going. So I think that's been the most surprising part of the one-on-one coaching that I wouldn't have had in other instances of attempting to diet or things like that. The other thing then personally that I have found surprising is how strong I have gotten. Like, not only like mentally when it comes to the choices and how I look at food and how I look at exercising, but now when I'm feeling stressed, I opt to go for a walk, and I never opted for that before. Like, the thought of going for a walk created stress, and I've kind of put that connection together. And people would say, you got to start walking and running. You feel so good afterwards. I'm like, I don't feel good afterwards. That is wrong. And now I if I feel stressed, I'm like, I got to go for a walk. I just need to walk. And I do feel those that the is it the dopamine or the serotonin, or I don't know, one of those definitely triggers in. And
Uh-huh.
so that's been surprising, that I've not only had the mental strength, but I've had that strength in being able to deal with my stress, and like muscle strength, like I'm lifting weights I never thought I could lift. I was I my big thing I'm proud of right now is I did 5 push-ups one day, and I've never been able to do a push-up at all. So just the actual physical strength that I've gained has been surprising. I didn't know that I would be able to do all of these things at once, lose weight, gain. I know losing weight I would gain confidence, but to gain, my ability to deal with stress, to gain muscle, to gain strength, to gain the confidence in being able to help others. I'm doing that through some different programs at the Y, and it that whole person, that's been
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
best surprise.
For sure. And I love like everything you said there. And even, the first part too, which I really wanted to emphasize, like, the check-ins, looking at all of it. And there are so many pieces to like some of those questions, like your bowel movements and things that like, you might on the client side feel like, oh, that like, that's not that important to answer. But like when I'm looking at like your data of how your body weight's trending, how your progress pictures are looking, how consistent we're being, how also like your sleep, stress, and all that, it paints a really good picture and gives me signs of, okay, I think this might be going on with your body. And some of those things I don't necessarily say in every check-in because I'm just kind of like monitoring them in the background. So like, some people will maybe want, hey, like I don't think I need check-ins. Just tell me like how many calories to eat, and then like I'll let you know how much weight I lost a month or two from now and then tell me what adjustment to make. But like there's so many things, like we need that biofeedback. That's what you like people call it, that feedback that you're getting from your body specifically. Like we have to be able to monitor those things to really, be in tune with what's working, for you or not. But I love just like how much strength you've built, and it really does boost your confidence so much when your body is just capable of so much more. And you also like you've obviously lost 30 pounds, and I know you're feeling so much better in your clothes and everything. I think recently there was a dress that you wore that you felt really good into, but you also build so much more confidence when you're physically able to do something, even if your body composition doesn't feel perfect. Because for one, it's never going to feel perfect. You're always going to compare yourself to like this leanest person on Instagram or the person with the most toned muscles and everything. But you're like, hey, maybe I still have a little bit of love handles to lose because, I'm 30 pounds down and not 50 pounds down. But like, I can now shoulder press this amount of weight, or I can squat this amount of weight. So I still feel good even though I'm not at my end goal. And that's like a huge kind of power of lifting weights and doing like a progressive program like that, workout wise, because you're able to progress on exercises, see your body get so much stronger. And you kind of carry that confidence really, wherever you go, whether you're just like meeting new people, you're just like, oh, like I'm maybe one of the strongest people in this room and I feel really confident about that. Or maybe even just going to the grocery store and coming back home, like you just feel confident because, hey, I can carry all the groceries in one trip instead of having to take two. Like those little things throughout the day add up. So you just build so much confidence in what your body ends up being capable of doing and not just what your body looks like too.
Recently, my husband and I were traveling, and he made a comment that he would grab my suitcase for me. And I was joking. I don't need a man to grab my suitcase. I can grab my own suitcase. And I was getting my suitcase out of the car, and he was just laughing at me. And the best part is then when we got to the hotel, I said, all that nonsense about how I don't need you, did you by chance pack me a toothbrush? And luckily he had. So I can handle my own suitcase now, but I still count on him to pack my toothbrush.
Yeah, that's funny. um, so we kind of already talked like a lot about this, I guess, but maybe just to like summarize, like I guess where are you now compared to where you were a year ago? Like if you were to just kind of summarize it in a few sentences.
Um, I mean, I think it's a reiteration of me saying the strength, um, and all around strength, and a willingness to do things, whether it be, um, you know, I played one on one against my 13-year-old in the swimming pool the other day, or I treaded water while he was trying to climb a rock wall, or going for a walk, or hiking somewhere, or I mentioned we walked around New York City, and I didn't want to take the Uber. I wanted to do the walk and see all the buildings and go through the neighborhoods. So I think just overall strength and willingness has been the biggest change for me throughout this year. Um, I think it's also I think a year ago I was scared. Um, and I was scared of what the future was going to hold for me and what that was going to look like for me. And I'm not scared. And I always say, especially with cancer, when someone is diagnosed with cancer, there's a moment that they have before cancer and after cancer. And like, oh, when did that happen? Oh, that was before cancer. I know a lot of people have it with COVID. Like that's a distinct moment in their life of that happened before COVID or after COVID, and that was cancer. And I recently told someone, I have before cancer and after cancer, but my goal now is to make after cancer my highlight reel. We talk about social media is full of highlight reels of people's lives, and I want my after cancer to be my highlight reel. And a year ago, I was afraid of what after cancer looked like. So
Hmm.
I'd say that's the biggest one
Yeah.
year change.
Yeah, no, I love that so much. And I think you have really made, this past year a really nice highlight reel, for that. And, all the changes you've seen, all the work you've put in and, where you are now. And like, it's really exciting to think about where you're going to be, 6 months or a year from now too. And, even further, based on just how far you've come already. So just really appreciate, you coming on here and sharing your story, Amy. And what would you say to someone who, is kind of on the fence about starting coaching, who's maybe like, listen to some of these podcasts or listen to some of my social media content, but they're kind of like wondering like, is this really going to be worth it? Like, I feel like maybe I already know what I need to do and I just need to just do it. Or like, what would you say to someone on the fence about
I'm glad you asked that. I was
starting?
hoping you were going to ask that, or I was going to interrupt and try to speak on it before you shut off. Um, I would say to that person, it's okay. All those feelings you're having right now, we all feel them, and you are not unique. You are not the only one out there thinking it's too late to do this, or it's too early to do this, or you're too tall, or you're too short, or you're too busy, or you feel too guilty. Whatever your too is, it's okay. We all feel it. And I always tell new moms, don't worry about what's going on today with that baby. Like, look at what's down the road. Like, it's all going to work itself out. Well, whatever, if you're on the fence right now, it's not going to work itself out. Like, you need to do something. And doing this has been one of the best decisions of my life. And Joey and I have never met in person. But my whole family knows when I say something Joey, who Joey is. Like, I expect him to show up for Christmas because Joey is a part of our lives now, and that is a good thing. And I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful. I'm grateful for my life, and I'm grateful that I'm going to continue keeping up with my boys, keeping up with my kids, and they're a lot to keep up with. And so I'm grateful. And if you're on the fence, go ahead. It's time to jump in.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I love everything you just said, and like you said, a lot of people think they're too busy or they're too stressed or they have this going on, and oh, like I need to just either try it on my own or I need to wait until this part of my life calms down and this quiets down and this slows down. But there's always going to be something else that makes you busy in life or something else that you feel like needs the financial attention or whatever. And if you really want to make this change and you've done or tried to do it on your own, so many times over and over and have failed, like you're just going to get the same result probably if you just keep doing that. Like you need to just and you use like the parent analogy, and I think this was what you're referring to is like, when you have a kid, and we only have one, my wife and I, and we're gonna have another one soon, here within the next few weeks. But like you don't really know what to expect necessarily. You don't really know if you're going to be ready for it. You don't know how you're going to handle the lack of sleep or how you're going to handle this challenge or that challenge. But you just like do it and dive into it and find a way to make it happen anyway. And then then you have a kid and then you realize, hey, like, let's go through that craziness again and let's have another kid. But you just like, you find a way to work through it. And like, there's so many other examples of this in life too. Like, I remember in middle school before I went to high school, like hearing all these stories of like, oh, high school is so much harder. Like, you have to turn your stuff in on time. You're not going to get second chances. And then, you work through that. And then same thing with college. Like, college, it's so much harder, but then you find a way to work through that. And then, if you've gone and went to higher college and got your master's degree or graduate degree, whatever, you do the same thing. And like every challenge feels too overwhelming or feels like, oh, I'm not going to be able to fit this into my life now, until you're kind of forced to do it. And you just have to like almost trick your brain into thinking like, I have no choice but to get in better shape and improve my life in this way. So I'm forcing myself to do it. And like you were kind of like, weren't actually forced. You could have just not done it and could have just, let your health maybe not get better. But you kind of almost tricked yourself, I guess, in thinking like, if I want to, improve my health, I am I have to force myself to do this. And you did. And I think too, if you looked back, you probably would realize, hey, this has actually been a little bit easier than what I probably thought it was going to be, if I reflect back on the 12
Absolutely.
months. So like if you're listening, you're much more resourceful than what you think, and you're able to do this even if you are super busy, if it is something that's really important to you, and it's probably going to be a little bit easier than what you think. I had a conversation with, a client yesterday, I think it was, where like the hardest part is just the mental struggles that we talked about and like being consistent and not letting yourself fall completely off. Like that's the hardest part, but the actual tasks you have to do on a daily basis and stay consistent with aren't that extreme really. But that's where like the coaching part comes in, where that's where, you have somebody to help you navigate those mindset struggles and those issues that, end up popping up. Um, but just
Yeah, and you're
really
always there,
go ahead.
when I have had busy moments in life and I'm like, oh, I don't know how am I gonna, you have been there to say, why don't we try it this way or why don't we try it this way? That's how we all get through life. No one is expected to be living all by themselves and figuring everything out in life on their own. So if this is something that someone out there is hearing and they're having a struggle with this, it's okay. And it doesn't mean you're weak and it doesn't mean you're dumb, but it's okay to rely on other people for support and it's okay to get advice. And that's what Joey is for me. He's my he's my coach. He guides me into doing what to making me the best version of me, and that's who I want. I want the best version of me every day, and I want that person for not only myself but for my husband and for my children, and one day I hope for my grandchildren, and Joey's just helping me get to that version of me.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I love it. And it's been really awesome being able to work with you so far, Amy, over the past year. And I'm excited to just keep going and see, where you end up, uh, a year from now or however long. And your story's definitely been really inspiring, even for me. So, I'm grateful to be a part of it. So, if anybody has any questions about coaching, I'm sure, Amy would be happy to answer any if you wanted to ask her, directly. But I think we'll just kind of wrap things up here, and maybe a year from now you'll be back on here, and we'll be doing another interview of just how much you've achieved over the next 12 months. Then,
I hope so. Thank you, Joey.
yep, cool. Well, we'll wrap it up, and we'll see you guys in the next one then.